National Signing Day is today, and barring any sort of unforeseen situations, SMU is about to sign its best class ever.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SMU here on a Wednesday. We are the daily podcast covering the SMU Mustangs football, basketball, which we'll get to in this show, as well as everything else in SMU athletics. My name is Grayson Singleton, covering the Mustangs, as well as all of college football here in the South. Our episode today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and start playing today. Coming up on today's show, SMU taking on Vanderbilt in a high-profile matchup in college basketball on Wednesday night. We'll talk about that. Plus, Nebraska coming after Scott Symons. Is there anything to it? And why I think Scott Symons should stay fully away from that situation up there in Lincoln. We'll talk about that to close up the show. But hey, let's go ahead and get started with National Signing Day. And National Signing Day has always been one of those days that is awesome and also should be moved, right? Like college football's calendar is kind of weirdly constructed, and that's putting it nicely. And I've always thought National Signing Day should be at least after the season. But anyway, here we are. National Signing Day is indeed today. So who is SMU going to sign, and what do I feel about the class? Well, first and foremost, this is the best class that SMU has ever signed. Period, point blank, end of story. Right now, and I know there's been a lot of shuffling, so I'm going to look this up as I am talking. Right now, SMU has the 25th ranked class in the 2026 cycle. That would be 6 spots better than they were in 2025 when they were 31st. In 2024, SMU was 94th in terms of a signing day class. Now, obviously, that class was headlined by 4-star running back Derek McFall, who certainly had some contributions this year. Speedy Nettles was also in that class, as was Brandon Booker, too. So there were a couple dudes that we have seen contribute for SMU in that 2024 class. But it just goes to show how on the up and up SMU is. Because you remember that 2024 class, that was the class right before SMU exploded. SMU goes to the college football playoff. What do? They jump all the way to 31. And now SMU has proven that they have some staying power, and they're about to sign what will likely end up being the 25th ranked class in the country. It might even go up if Penn State continues to tumble. I'm not sure if Penn State is actually behind them, but I digress. Right now, here's what SMU is poised to sign, in case you've lost it. SMU has 5 guys in the ESPN 300, and I know there's a lot of recruiting services. You can pick and choose which ones you like, but 5 of their guys are in the ESPN 300. At least 8 of their commits that they are poised to sign are a 4-star or above. Really, they're all 4 stars in at least one of the 3 recruiting services: Rivals, 24/7 Sports, and ESPN. Those are the 3 services that I'm referring to. So they have 8 dudes who are a 4-star in at least one of those services. Now, obviously, the On3 Rivals industry rankings has really taken over how we view these rankings. So I'm going to give you all the 4 stars in the Rivals industry rankings. Christian Rhodes, who I love, running back out of Lake Highlands. Drew Evers, an interior offensive lineman that all of you should love, because not only did SMU love him, but so did Ohio State and Penn State and Clemson and Oklahoma. Evan Goodwin is a 4-star, the tackle from Bauxite, Arkansas. Algour Miles, 4-star wide receiver from Kaufman, Texas. Those are the Rivals industry 4 stars. And then you've got guys like Ja'Kai Anderson, who is a 4-star according to ESPN, out of Louisiana, who you flipped from LSU. Tavion Atkinson is a defensive lineman that I think is going to be really interesting. He's a 3-star, but he's a borderline 4-star on some of the services. Kenneth Goodwin III is a 4-star according to ESPN as well. Eddie Kelly Jr., who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, 4-star running back in the Rivals rankings out of Klein in Houston, Texas. Max Wright has a 4-star from ESPN, who you just flipped from Texas a couple of days ago. SMU's recruiting class is pretty loaded. And this is going to be the foundation going forward. And if this is the foundation going forward, I think you've done pretty well, because you have 2 running backs who I think are going to be really good at the collegiate level. Algour Miles is a big-bodied wide receiver, 6'2", 205. That's a dude that could end up being your next Jordan Hudson, that type of playmaker at the X wide receiver, because he's got the requisite size and the requisite build to do so. Plus, he's a really good wide receiver too, and presents matchup problems wherever he lines up. So I like Aljour Miles a lot. If I had to rank the guys, if I had to rank everybody in this class of who I love the most, I would go Christian Rhodes 1. I would go Aljour Miles 2. Drew Evers, Evan Goodwin. That's the direction I would go. And they're all going to be awesome. You got 2 tackles in this cycle too. 2 really good tackles. Evan Goodwin and Max Wright. I mean, that's cornerstone type of stuff, because that's a premier position. And then we wait to be seen, and I haven't even brought this up, it'll be interesting to see what Cole Leinert pans out to be. 3-star quarterback commit from the Los Angeles area. Now, obviously, we've kind of shifted Cole Leinert to the back burner because we've been so excited that 4-star quarterback in the 2027 class, Malachi Ziegler, will hop on board for the 2027 year. That would be his true freshman year. So we've kind of forgotten that Cole Leinert is in this 2026 class. But you're doing good at quarterback. You've got 2 good running backs, a receiver that I love. Ja'Kai Anderson's a good player too, by the way, but Aljour Miles is the one that I really, really love. And you got 2 tackles and one of the best interior linemen in the entire class. Not to mention, you got another one in Papunga Katoa as well, who's pretty good too. Drew Evers is the 13th ranked interior offensive lineman in the entire class of 2026. You did really damn good. Really good bringing that dude in. Evan Goodwin, 27th ranked tackle in the entire class. Christian Rhodes, the 12th ranked running back in the class. Like, I know some of us are kind of down on this team because they didn't take care of business against Cal. So you're a little bit down on the staff and you're thinking, oh, will SMU just regress to what SMU was and just be a middle-of-the-road type of football program? If there's one way I can try to convince you that SMU is still on a positive path and is still going to have some staying power atop a Power 4 conference, look no further than how they're recruiting. Look no further than that. Because SMU has never been here. This will be the highest number of 4-stars by a lot that they have signed in a given class ever. This will be their highest recruiting class in the modern recruiting era. And it's right there with and correlating with the last couple of seasons that we've seen. 8 wins in the AAC is not 8 wins in the ACC. We got to make sure that even though the season didn't finish out as we had hoped it would, even though that didn't happen, SMU's still going to be something. And by the way, they've got a good reputation, because that's also what recruiting will tell you, is that the best of the best kids, hey, we want to go play for Rhett and his staff. We want to go play for Jaron Justice, who I believe had a hell of a class for Jaron Justice. We want to go play for Coach Foster. Those 2 type of running backs. I mean, that's big time, right? So SMU's not going anywhere. The play on the field will say it. I think the coaching will say it. But ultimately, the way that SMU is recruiting is going to say it even better than I can articulate saying have faith in the staff. You want to have faith in the staff? Here's some faith. Here's some reason for you to have some faith. Look at the dudes they're going to bring in, and look at the dudes that want to play for them. Now, can the staff develop them? That'll remain to be seen. Coming up next, that's who SMU is going to sign in the 2026 class. Coming up next, SMU basketball and the infield squad takes on a Vanderbilt team that I've been really impressed with so far this season. This is going to be a big matchup. We'll talk about that next. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment, you can put a bet on. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. They've got live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly so you can put a bet on if you think a team's going to cover or if a team's going to win with your payouts adjusting in real time. Player props can update as guys heat up as well, and you can even bet on the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and now, so can you. All right, welcome back to the show. Grayson Singleton here on Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, and now the #1 sports podcast network that is available. All right, SMU takes on Vanderbilt tonight in a matchup that I'm going to be watching a lot because I think these are two teams that have a similarity, and I also think SMU is going to have to continue a trend, a really good trend, by the way, of play if they want to beat this Vanderbilt team. Now, I do think these two teams are eerily similar in the fact that they want to get up and down. They both like high possession games played at minimum in the 80s. Now, Vanderbilt, I can tell you, yeah, Vanderbilt wants to play a game in the 80s, but Vanderbilt has topped 100 about 5 times this year. Now, obviously, we're still in the part of the season where half of these games are not against quality competition. So Vanderbilt had a string of games where, okay, so you dropped 105 on Lipscomb, dropped 105 on UCF, Power 4 opponent, but not a very good one. Dropped 92 on Eastern Kentucky, excuse me. Arkansas Pine Bluff beat them by 30. Beat Texas Southern by 30. Dropped 100 in both of those games. And then comes the game that I actually watched a decent amount of. The Western Kentucky game. And this is where I turned and said, Vanderbilt actually might be something. So Vanderbilt's point totals up to that point, had been 105, 105, 92, 104, 109. But against Western Kentucky, the final score was 83-78, a 5-point win for the Commodores, in which they only scored 40 points in the first half. Now, I know I said only 40 points. That was by far their lowest in the first half to that point. And the Hilltoppers played them well. They got physical with them. They crashed the boards, didn't give Vanderbilt a whole lot of extra chances, and they were able to keep up with the Commodores in terms of the up and down pace, but still were able to play within themselves and play at their own pace. And that's I think is going to be key for SMU, is that you're going to have to make sure that you don't get caught playing their game. And yes, both teams play high possession, up and down type of basketball, but if one team starts to go hot, it's really easy to try to match blow for blow, and then you can get out of your own rhythm. So if and look, Vanderbilt, by the way, because I don't think SMU is a good enough defensive team to where Vanderbilt won't go on their own runs. Because if there's one thing about this team, I don't know if you've watched them this season. If there's one thing about this Vanderbilt team, they can shoot the cover off the basketball. They can shoot the lights out. They shoot as a team 41% from three, which is excellent. Duke Miles, transfer from Oklahoma, 18 points a game, leads the way. He has been an effective shooter as well. They've got a squad, and they got a squad of shooters that can score the basketball from anywhere on the floor. They are going to get theirs. What you cannot do if you're SMU is come out of your own character to try to go bar for bar for them. That's what cannot happen. And look, SMU is going to shoot a lot of threes. They're going to try to drive and kick. They're going to try to get Boopie Miller to the basket. They're going to try to score in the mid-range too. Jaron Pierre, I think made steady improvements as the season has gone on. But you cannot try to get into a three-point shootout with these dudes unless they're naturally generated threes, drive and kicks, in transition, running the lane, swinging the ball. I don't mind if you shoot 43s a game, but it's how the 43s look that's going to determine whether or not SMU is going to be in this game with Vanderbilt. Now, SMU has done a really good job of something in these last few games. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt if you must, and I'm not going to fault you for doing so. But we're still in the point of the season where some of your games are against low-level opponents. But ever since that Butler game, where SMU allowed the Bulldogs to shoot 45% from three, they have held Arkansas Pine Bluff, Arkansas State, Radford, and Mississippi State in their most recent win to under 30% shooting from three. So their perimeter defense has been a lot better ever since that Butler game, and it's going to have to be tonight. I think their ball pressure on the perimeter has been a lot better, and it's going to have to be present tonight. Because if you give Vanderbilt just a bunch of space to operate and they can continue to be comfortable, that's how that team beats you. Okay, so you're going to have to really guard, and you're going to have to make sure you defend the three-point line. I will be curious to see if they're able to do that. But Vanderbilt's a good team. They're an impressive squad, and they're a squad that's proven that, yes, we can score a bunch of points, but if you mug it up with us and you make us have to work for things a little bit more, we can adjust and still win games, as is evidenced from that Western Kentucky game. So I'm really curious to see what happens. I'm really curious to see. SMU, by the way, I believe had some votes in the AP poll this past week. They are not in it, but SMU did get 8 votes in the AP poll this week. Never mind, it's not 8. I thought there were more. It's more than that. I actually was looking at the college football rankings, but let's see this here for a second. SMU got, okay, I'm not finding it. ESPN is crashing out on me right now. But I think they got like 21. I think the number was 21 votes in the AP this week. So the Mustangs are on the rise. People are starting to take notice. They're right now undefeated. So if they can get a game like this, I think, if they can win a game like this, you might see them in the rankings next week. I don't know if you'll see them. I don't know if they'll be just ever closer, but they will be in the rankings. It's 12 votes in the AP. Pardon me. So there you go. SMU basketball on a hot streak right now. But to me, those are my keys, right? Stay in character and play your own game. Defend the three-point line. And then when they do miss, you got to make them. A team like this, you have got to have them one and done. So I'm looking at Igatolu. I'm looking at Corey Washington. I'm looking at those types of dudes that are going to have to clean it up on the boards for SMU to win this game. Do I think SMU can win this game? Truthfully, yes. Yes. You guys know me by now. I'm not going to just tell you something that I know you just want to hear. I do believe SMU, especially with the way they can score the basketball and the pace at which they play, can win a game like this. But there has to be ball pressure on the perimeter, and Vanderbilt cannot just stay hot from three. And you've got to play within yourself. There is a world where SMU wins this game. I certainly believe there is. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I would not think they were going to win. Okay? But that's what's going to have to happen. But I'm excited for this game tonight. Coming up next, Nebraska and Scott Symons, are they a match or not? We'll talk about that. Final segment here on Locked On SMU here on a Wednesday, wrapping it up. And I know we're trying to move on from football. I've seen a little bit of the comments saying, well, yeah, let's move on to basketball or whatever. And okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to fight you on that. But the football season is not done with. And the football coaching carousel is not done with. By the way, we talked about this on my radio show today. Penn State still doesn't have a coach, which is beyond bonkers to me because, again, signing day is today, and Penn State still doesn't have a coach. Yikes. Yikes. Anyway, Nebraska is interested in Scott Symons. I have heard that Scott Symons is not very interested in Nebraska. Now, I could just stop there and say that's the end of the show. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll see you tomorrow. But here's the thing that SMU has going for itself. Number one, SMU is not should not be a coordinator-to-coordinator job when it comes to Nebraska. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. But SMU, I think, has risen itself to the point where if you're going to go make a linear move, lateral move, excuse me, if you're going to make a lateral move from SMU, you're jumping to, say, like a Florida State, right? Not necessarily a Nebraska. And I'm just arbitrarily throwing schools out there, but you guys get the idea. So that's one thing. I don't think you go from a ACC school to a mid-tier, debatably Big Ten school. I don't think that's how this is going to work anymore. But when it comes to Scott Symons, SMU is in position to hold on to this dude for as long as they need to, and before he becomes a head coach or he gets a coordinator job at, say, somewhere like a Texas Tech, something in that kind of a range, right? So SMU, because of how it's positioned in terms of resources, they pay him well, by the way. Scott Symons is very well compensated. With the resources, with the location, people still want to live in Dallas. Dallas is a really good place to raise a family too. Good schools around that area. Your good choice of, private schools, good choice of higher end public schools, depending on where exactly you're living in, right? There's a good availability of resources to raise a family and live in Dallas. So SMU, in terms of the resources it has and where it's located, is in a good position to not lose coordinators to lateral moves like Nebraska. And again, SMU, still with its ascension and, Rhett Lashley at the helm of it, is going to be a decent spot to be a coordinator for a long time. Now, here's the other thing. That's the SMU side of it. There's also the Nebraska side of it, where Nebraska fails or pales in comparison to SMU in a couple of regards. Number one is that SMU has a much easier access to the college football playoff in the ACC, given SMU's talent right now and the competition around it. They have a much easier access to the college football playoff than Nebraska does in the Big Ten. Because if you're Nebraska in the Big Ten, you've got to catch Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan, and that's just all we know of from this year. Penn State will not be a dumpster fire forever. We know that. Who knows if Iowa ever rises back up to challenge? Wisconsin, you would think they get off the mat at some point in time, right? So Nebraska, to me, is kind of stuck in terms of whether or not they will ever get to the college football playoff in the Big Ten. I just don't know if it'll happen. And that's before we get to the fact that Nebraska may have the most overrated coach in college football. This was a topic of discussion in my office yesterday about Matt Rule. Has Matt Rule done the thing where you turn around a couple of programs and we think you're really good, but then all of a sudden you try to make that one move and it just hits a wall? Sorry if that absolutely exploded in the microphone. But has he made that move where this is going to be the hard cap? Because right now, let's look this up. Matt Rule at Nebraska. Matt Rule as the head coach of Nebraska, is 19-18. He is one game over 500. That doesn't match up to Matt Rule's reputation. It just doesn't. So I don't know if I'm Scott Symons, if I'm leaving for a much harder conference where my school is more poorly situated to compete for championships, and the coach there is one of the most overrated and has one of the more inflated resumes or inflated reputations in college football. I don't think there's a huge setup for success there at Nebraska, especially with the guys you're playing against, how dysfunctional they've been at the quarterback position, and even when they have had some structure at quarterback, then Dylan Raiola gets hurt, and then there's all the rumors that Dylan Raiola may be transferring out, which I wouldn't blame him, quite frankly. I just don't see a good situation at Nebraska. I don't think Matt Rule is the head coach of Nebraska. What are we? We are now in December 2025. I think this time in 2027, Matt Rule is not the head coach of the Cornhuskers. So even if the situation at SMU wasn't one where he was compensated very nicely, wasn't one where the location is really good, wasn't one where the program is clearly on the ascent, Nebraska's not the one I'm going to if I have options and if I have a good reputation. Scott Symons is a Broyles Award finalist. Scott Symons is nationally acclaimed as a top-of-the-line coordinator in the ACC, if not one of the top 15, 20 DCs in the country. Okay? He doesn't need to go to a situation that is not ideal for him. And I don't think it's ideal for any coordinator to go over there right now because, like I just said about a minute ago, I don't think Matt Rule is long for that job. Not after being 19-18 in his first, 3 years on the job is where we are now? One game over 500? Nah, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. So, Nebraska may be interested in him. I would not be worried about losing Scott Symons to Nebraska. I just wouldn't. All right, that'll do it for Locked On SMU here on a Wednesday. Hope you guys enjoyed the National Signing Day content as well as the new class of SMU Mustangs are officially here. I'm Grayson Singleton. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs as they take you through all the storylines of the most interesting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships. You can hear about it all on Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We'll talk to you tomorrow for a Thursday edition of Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.